We're joined now by Chief Meteorologist Josh Eachus. Good evening, Dr. Josh Eachus. I got to start off by saying this. The only man that I watch for my weather is this man right here that's joining us. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
Good, Blake. Good. I appreciate the positive feedback there, and I'm happy to join you for the first time on the air here. I know we've talked off camera before, but this is cool.
Well, yeah, we have talked off air, and I send you some stuff, and during the last storm, I think we had talked. I was like, I'm only watching this. If he says it's going east, then it's going east. Okay, so whatever Dr. Josh Eachus says is what we're going to do. So obviously, we're going to talk about Hurricane Rafael that's in Cuba at the current moment and see how it may affect this game with LSU and Alabama. But as I told you before we started recording here, we did ask for some fan questions, and I love some of these. I love our fans that chimed in, want to know from Dr. Josh Eachus. Here's number one from Ryan. Dr. Josh, when are you going to allow Blake to start doing hurricane coverage like he's the Bayou John Contori? Can we get me out there for live hurricane coverage?
You know what? We have a little bit of a coverage gap in Southern Livingston Parish that I think you could fulfill well. We're going to get you on a P-row out on Lake Maurepas when the winds are whipping, while the waves are crashing, and I think we're going to get some good real-time reporting there.
As you were saying that, I started getting a little terrified. I might have to back out of that one, but I am available during hurricane season because as long as it's not during football season, if it's in early August, we can get this thing done, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that. I mean, we could, it could be like the hurricane hunters. They're on reserve for a couple of weeks a year. We'll just mark your part of the calendar as before football season starts.
The only thing that I would want is that when I come up on screen that my name is Bayou Blake Ruffino.
Bayou Blake, live from Lake Maurepas.
Live in Lake Maurepas. I mean, I'm not that far from it. I mean, I could throw a rock to it. So I
figured, we're geographically sensitive here. We know that's your spot.
Yes, indeed. The second question is from Brian. So rhyming him, Ryan and Brian. Dr. Josh, during the 2022 National Championship run, did Jay Johnson purposely elect to receive lightning strikes to delay the game so that Paul Skeens could pitch later in the evening?
Dude, that was crazy. That whole day, I remember thinking, why are they making all these movements to the schedule? They'd have been better off keeping with the original. I don't know where they were getting their info from. I can tell you it was not me that day.
Well, it's interesting because the funny thing is I remember that day too very vividly, just for everybody who doesn't remember the regional that was in Baton Rouge and super regional for that matter. We had a 9-hour delay and you were kind of on Twitter like, what?
We see this massive gap. There was no lightning from state line to state line, and we're delaying the game. I had no idea what they were doing.
I think that just kind of makes me believe that Jay Johnson's a Bayou Mafia member. If we're going to talk about the Bayou, I mean, like how you can delay a game and convince the NCAA to delay a game. I mean, neither confirm or deny what he did, but that was always interesting. But which leads me to another question. Games in baseball season do get delayed pretty frequently throughout the spring. It's normally a 10-mile radius. I have asked you this off air for my own personal, and we have talked about this, but just for people who haven't, how serious really is that? Because I know fans get very discouraged, like, hey, man, it's 10 miles away. We're delaying a game, but it's actually pretty serious. And when me and you talked, it could be pretty serious.
Yeah. I mean, I think the rule has shifted over the years as science has shifted. Like, so I think as a kid growing up, I remember, and this was before, many meteorology classes, it was like a 5-mile radius. But I think as we started to study lightning more, we found that there have actually been strikes as far as 8 or 10 miles away. So I think 8 is the true rule. And to be super safe, the NCAA and other sporting venues as a buffer go with that 10 miles. So we're not catching some unforeseen case where it's in that 8 to 10 range, but it has happened. Is it exceedingly rare? Yes. Getting struck by lightning is exceedingly rare, but it's exceedingly not rare that it's fatal if you do get struck. So it's an abundance of caution. I worry, I've said this to colleagues for years. I worry about some of these early season SEC games, a NASCAR event. It's just going to take one non-evacuated stadium in a thunderstorm to get struck, and we're talking about a mass casualty situation, and we certainly don't want that to be anybody. We don't want it to be happening here in Baton Rouge. So it's the nature of the beast.
So it's not BS. I mean, like, this is pretty serious. I mean, you're talking about mass casualties and something like this, and again, I don't know what I don't know, but you're running around with a big a metal rod in your hand. I don't think it's necessarily the best thing to be doing.
No, and I don't know. I'm not even talking about the players as much as the spectators. I mean, you're talking about, think of something like Tiger Stadium and the video boards, and we have flagpoles and whatnot. So you have all these objects that would essentially be lightning rods. And then if there are fans nearby where that is struck, you're talking about maybe a whole section of people that could be injured. There's an image on Google. I've posted it on social media before. You'd have to, you could probably look up, just Google lightning strike stadium. And it's a soccer stadium in South America where there's like 3 rows of seats that had just been vaporized by a lightning strike. And you go, what if people had been sitting there? So that's why they take these really seriously, because while the chance is exceedingly low, it's going to be really bad news if, lightning strikes.
Well, at least we know that it's not BS. I think a lot of fans that don't have the knowledge, myself included, are like come on, but you're right. Better be safe than sorry. You don't want Paul Skeens out there. And, what if he's pitching a no-hitter? I don't want anybody to die, but at the same time, I don't want to interrupt Paul Skeens.
Let the man cook. Let him cook.
Let him cook. He's the NL Rookie of the Year. He should have been the MVP. And if he's got a no-hitter, how dare you die during a no-hitter? You know what I mean? Like,
I don't want to be the one to pull that trigger either. That's the people that have to make that decision is they know what they're interrupting.
Yeah, greatness. Yeah. I would get mad. I would want somebody to be mad at me if I died and there was a no-hit. So anyway. All right, so Dr. Eachus, again, I appreciate you joining us. Obviously, this being late in the year and late in the hurricane season, I was listening to y'all this week, and correct me if I'm wrong here, a storm has never hit the state of Louisiana in the month of November. Is that correct?
No, that's right. Went back through the archives just yesterday just to see Gulf in general. There have been 6 named storms in the Gulf since 1950 that have made landfall. All of them have been in Florida. So it's never happened in Louisiana. In fact, our latest date for a landfalling name system was Hurricane Juan in 1985, and that was at the end of October, 28th to 30th, something like that. So yeah, November, this would be completely unforeseen if it did happen, and I can say it's looking increasingly unlikely that it will happen.
So let's take a look at y'all's 2:00 weather advisory or hurricane advisory here. I'm just going to kind of give you the floor and kind of ask some questions in there. But right now, Hurricane Rafael is a Category 3, which, it's pretty significant if you ask me. But as it goes on here, can you kind of break this model down and what you think the storm is doing and why the cone of uncertainty is kind of shifted away from Louisiana here?
So what's been happening here is the last few days, we've been waiting for the steering winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere to kind of come into the United States because, they move across the globe. So they've come into the United States now, and our weather balloons that are released every day are starting to sample those upper level winds. And with that, we're getting a better picture for the steering currents that will ultimately affect the storm. And originally, it looked as though those steering currents were going to kind of pull it more due north, as they would with a weaker system. But now that this system has kind of strengthened a little bit and we have a clearer picture of those upper level steering winds, there's more confidence that it's going to drive this thing a little bit more due west across the Gulf of Mexico. And we've been seeing the southern and western shift for about 24 hours now. Mm-hmm. Even when that cone was pointed at Louisiana, myself and my teammates had pretty high confidence that a really hostile environment in the Gulf, such as dry air and wind shear, would make this a fairly minuscule system by the time it got to us anyway. Mm-hmm. So as yesterday, you would have asked me, well, could this affect the game? I'd say maybe some showers and a breeze, but this is not game moving, game canceling. If we didn't tell you it was a named system, you wouldn't know the difference between that and a showery day. Now, with this new track change, I think we're in the mind of this may not reach Louisiana at all. We could still see some weather from it. We could still see some moisture drawn towards Louisiana. In fact, we're actually increasing our chance for showers now on Saturday than we had before that may be related to Rafael. But I think the top line takeaway is the game will not be displaced due to weather. The game is happening.
Okay, well, so let me just say this. I feel like this is how I envision how this reality went, is that somebody in heaven said, God, LSU and Alabama plays this week, and there's a tropical storm, a hurricane in Cuba. And he goes, just make it just not subtle. Like, make it subtle that it goes that way. Now, let me ask you this, because I don't know what I don't know, and I just want to ask. The cone, though, is still pretty big, right? Yeah. And I know that you have Sunday at 6 a.m., around where it'd still be in the Gulf. So the chances of the game not being there, but is there still a chance that, because that's a lot of water, a lot of area to cover there from Louisiana still being in that, is the western part of the state still needing to be on a high alert of the storm due to the fact of that maybe once it gets fully into the Gulf here that we don't know specifically or we don't know where the storm is going to be?
That's a great question. I always say it's a good idea to kind of continue to pay attention to the forecast, but the thing is, the farther north through the Gulf this system makes it, the more it's going to encounter those hostile conditions. Dry air is all across the western Gulf, so it's going to eat that anyway. That's going to hurt it. Wind shear is the other thing that hurricanes don't like. That is stronger the closer you get to land. So the farther north this would be, the weaker it would be. And also, now that we're into November, the farther north you get into the Gulf, the lower the water temperatures are. So this has all three strikes working against it for a system to kind of maintain its integrity. Could we still be talking about a named storm getting close to Louisiana? I won't say that's out of the question, especially if it's on the northern side of that cone. And remember, that cone represents where the center is going to go, not where impacts will be felt. So there could be some scraggly looking, barely holding on to tropical storm status system in the northern Gulf. But anything that's a major threat to Louisiana, unlikely. Like worst case scenario, showers, breezes, and the lakes see some higher than usual tides.
So let me ask you this question too. There's something that I've always noticed with storms, and I've always been interested. On this graph here, it says moving northwest at 14 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. For a hurricane, that seems like it's moving. Am I wrong in that? Like it's kind of getting in and out of here. Am I wrong in saying that?
No. 10 to 15 is a pretty good speed for a tropical system. Once you start seeing one move over 15, what they actually start to do is create some of their own wind shear. Think about like a car moving on the road and you get that wind blowing across the car, resistance. So the faster a system goes, that actually can be bad for it. And what's going to happen, though, is once it starts to make that turn in the Gulf of Mexico, it really is going to begin to slow down. So that 14 mile per hour speed won't be consistent. And once it slows down, it's going to fight more of that dry air, more wind shear. This system looks impressive right now, but it's got a tough road ahead of it, which is good for us once it gets into the Gulf.
All right. So basically what I've just heard, okay, and I'm probably being very biased, is from 6:30 to 9:30 Saturday night in Death Valley, that the chance of rain might be.
I'm hiding. Every time I'm sitting in the stadium that goes off, I have to earmuff it because everybody around me always says, "Hey, Josh, good to see you. Good job covering that storm last week." And I have to pretend I don't hear that part.
Right. Look, obviously the chance of rain never is a big thing here. You don't get that anywhere else. But basically, in all seriousness, what I'm hearing is, other than some spotty showers maybe here or there, the game is pretty much like, hey, man, I mean, we're good to go here.
We play football in the rain. I've sat in that stadium in rain before with a poncho on and not flinched about it. So I would say take your poncho out on Saturday. We do need to wait and see on the forecast. I'll say this much, while a major impact seems off the table, moving the games off the table, if that system's closer to the southern part of our cone, we may have nothing at all. If it's closer to the northern part of that cone, I might plan for a decent number of showers out there on Saturday and maybe a little bit of a dreary day. So that could happen. We've had some wet days out on campus. Matter of fact, this just came up in the Time Hop. You use that app? Came up in my Time Hop.
Oh, yeah.
Years ago, the Bama game, in the morning, we were out tailgating in pouring rain. And then things cleared up before you go in there and have that overtime thriller at night. So this could be a good omen. Some showers on Bama home day might be a good thing.
Bring the damn storm, baby. Rafael, I need you to be here, baby. I am a creature of habit, a creature of, if it happened once, it needs to happen again.
Yeah.
Again, here comes God. Thank you in the name of the Father, Son, the Catholic Jesus. All right, one last for you one here. I got to ask you, how do you see the game going? I know that everybody's asking you the questions in reference to the weather. I want to know the question, what you think about the game going in on Saturday.
At the beginning of the season, this was a game I actually had checked off as I thought we were going to get this one. And I still felt that way until I saw what Marcel Reed did to us in College Station 2 weeks ago. But that was our weakest game this year, was that one against Lenora Sellers, 2 running quarterbacks. So I do have some reservations about how we're going to handle Milroe. He got to us last year as well, but we have a different defensive coordinator this year. I think we're working like a unit now with unbelievable to say it, but I said this to my wife, HPJ being hurt has that been helpful? Because we're operating as a unit now instead of trying to scheme for one guy. And maybe this Blake Baker scheme unit, knowing that they have 2 weeks to prepare for a running quarterback, helps us get it done.
Well, and I agree with that holistically. You know, like I think because when somebody goes down, you get to play your style of football, right? Like, I mean, sometimes, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, in all fairness, I think Harold not being there vastly hurt you, right? I mean, because Marcel Reed's not a power running quarterback like Sellers, but he is definitely speed that would have helped you. But in totality, yes, it's. I mean, look, we're going to talk about this tonight. I'll share it with you guys. Can you give me? Y'all see, the interns are really good. Think about this. You're 23 spots better in the run game. You're 32 spots better in the pass game. And defensively, you've jumped up 27 spots in total defense since he's been gone.
Wow. I didn't. That's crazy. Yeah.
Well, I like to pull out stats that verify what I see. So, people are like, oh, you're only talking about this because you love it. Well, yeah, that's kind of the point of having your own show. You get to do what you want. So. All right, Dr. Josh Eachus, you can find him at WBRZ. Doc, tell them everywhere they can find you as well.
Yeah, it's Twitter, Instagram. The handle, I think, is on the screen right there. Facebook page, Chief Meteorologist Dr. Josh Eachus. Check out WBRZ on Facebook and Twitter, and then also the Storm Station weather app. We've just revamped that, where we got a lot of new great content coming out on it every day. And, I get people to call and email about the forecast. And I actually, when I'm out tailgating, I have a koozie, one of those Arctic koozies. It has a QR code. So I don't work on game days, right? It says, here's my forecast. So you download that and you get my latest forecast instead of me trying to figure it out with a couple beers in me.
I mean, maybe that's probably the best time that they should be asking with a couple of beers.
That's right. You'll get a wish cast instead of a forecast.
Yeah, no doubt. I lied. One last question. How bad is Matt Trent at golf? Because I'm going to clip this and send it to him.
I haven't played with him in a year, so maybe he's gotten better. But, when we go out there, we're trading strokes. So, I mean, if I'm having a good day, I get him. If he's having a good day, he gets me.
The only thing that I love about Matt Trent is that he kind of humble brags his golf game. Like that's the only thing he humble brags about. And I'm like, all right, buddy, I'm going to get out there with you one day, but you're probably right. He's probably right.
He's got that baseball swing. So,
well, he is kind of like a little athletic. I mean, college athletes are normally athletic. So
you would.
All right. Dr. Josh Eachus, thank you so much.
Thanks for the time, Blake.
No problem.